Let me ask you something that might make you a little uncomfortable. When was the last time you did something, watched something, ate something, wanted something, and thought to yourself, why am I even doing this? Where is this coming from? Because here's what I've realized after going deep into this topic. Most of what we call temptations, distractions, or even bad habits, they're not really problems with your character. They're not because you're weak or broken or lack willpower. They're instructions, ancient, deeply embedded biological instructions written into your nervous system millions of years before smartphones, before cities, before civilization even existed. And until you understand where those instructions come from, you'll keep fighting them in completely the wrong way. So let's break this down. Here's the question that completely reframed how I think about urges and behavior. Why is it relatively easy for someone to go vegan, to cut out meat, dairy, all animal products, but incredibly difficult for the same person to stop watching porn or quit junk food or resist scrolling for hours? The answer, when you actually think it through, is almost shockingly logical. Your body exists for exactly two reasons as far as nature is concerned. 1, keep yourself alive. 2, create more versions of yourself before you die. That's it. That's the whole program. Now, when you decide to go vegan, you're essentially renegotiating the first objective. You're telling your body, hey, we're changing the fuel source. And nature actually doesn't mind much. A few days of craving cheese, maybe a week of feeling off, and then your body adjusts because the first objective is still being met. You're alive, you're fine. But when it comes to that second objective, reproduction, sex, the survival of your genetic line, nature does not negotiate. She sends a full-on internal army. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, that second objective is existential. You not fulfilling it is literally the end of your bloodline. So what does this have to do with porn? Everything. Here's the thing most people don't realize. We've only been civilized for a tiny, almost embarrassingly short slice of our existence. Humans started farming around 10,000 years ago. We developed organized thought and philosophy roughly 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. But before that, for hundreds of thousands of years, maybe millions, we were in the jungle. We were animals, roaming, hunting, competing, and yes, driven entirely by primal instincts. And those millions of years of jungle living, they didn't disappear when we started building cities. They got buried, just beneath the surface. Your nervous system is still largely a jungle nervous system wearing a suit. Think about what life in the wild actually looked like for our ancestors. You woke up, you foraged for food, you ate everything you could get your hands on because tomorrow was never guaranteed. You fought for territory, and your deepest biological drive, the one that kept your genes alive, was to reproduce with as many partners as possible to diversify your genetic portfolio. That's not crude or offensive. That's evolutionary strategy. Porn in this context isn't a glitch. It's your jungle brain reacting to modern stimuli. And this explains so much more than just pornography. Think about why sugar is so addictive. In the jungle, calorie-dense foods, fats, sugars, carbohydrates were rare and precious. When you found them, you ate as much as possible because scarcity was the default. That instinct is still running. Now sugar is everywhere, accessible 24/7, and your body is still treating every bite like it might be the last feast before a long drought. Diabetes, obesity, heart disease, a huge chunk of what kills people today isn't caused by bacteria or viruses, it's lifestyle. It's an ancient biological program running in a completely incompatible modern environment. The same drive that makes you binge eat junk food at midnight is the same drive behind porn consumption. Both are coming from the exact same place, the jungle. Your ancestral past telling you, maximize calories, maximize reproduction opportunities, go, now. And here's where I want to be really honest with you, because I think most conversations about this topic get it completely wrong. Most people approach pornography or masturbation or any kind of sexual urge through a moral lens. They say things like, it destroys your life energy, it makes you weak, every time you do it, you lose power. Look, I'm not here to be your morality coach, and honestly, framing this stuff as sin or weakness is not just unhelpful, it's counterproductive. Suppressing an urge doesn't resolve it. Shame doesn't rewire biology. What actually changes behavior is understanding. When you truly understand that this urge is not some demon inside you, it's literally just evolutionary programming from millions of years ago trying to get you to reproduce, something shifts. The urge loses its mystery. It loses its power. You look at it and think, oh, This is just my jungle brain. This is an ancient species level instruction. I see you. And when you see something clearly, it starts to lose its grip. There's a really interesting way this was explained to me, and it stuck with me deeply. Imagine you decide to observe your thoughts. Just watch them, like a spectator. Watch the impulse arise. Notice it. Don't act on it. Good advice, right? But here's the trap. If you go watch something just to observe it, you might end up doing it. The girls who were sent to a mall to observe consumer behavior, they came back with shopping bags. They went to observe, but somewhere between arriving and leaving, they became participants. The point is, there's a difference between witnessing something and getting absorbed by it. And the skill, the real skill, is being a witness without becoming a participant. That takes practice. You'll slip early on. That's fine. That's expected. The practice builds slowly. The same is true with any impulsive behavior. You don't defeat it by white-knuckling your way through. You defeat it by deeply knowing what it is. Now let me bring this to a bigger point, because this is where things get really interesting. Why does this topic feel so massive, so central, so life-defining? Here's my honest answer. Because your life might be too small. Think about the greatest people who have ever inspired you, the figures you admire most. If you were somehow standing in front of one of them, someone who had dedicated their entire life to something truly meaningful, someone who had changed the world in some way, would you ask them, "So, did you watch porn?" Of course not. The question would feel absurd, embarrassing, irrelevant. And here's why. Their life was so filled with purpose, so oriented towards something massive and worthwhile. The questions about tiny personal habits simply didn't register. They weren't fighting their jungle brain because they had built something bigger than the jungle. That's the actual solution. Not don't watch porn, not stop eating sugar, not suppress your urges. Build a life that's so rich, so purposeful, so genuinely engaging that these things naturally shrink to their proper size. They don't disappear, they just stop mattering as much. Like how you don't think about your socks when you're in the middle of something that really matters to you. Here's what I'm going to leave you with. We came out of the jungle, but the jungle hasn't quite left us yet. Our food cravings, our sexual drives, our obsession with status, land, possession, all of it traces back to those millions of years of wiring. That's not shameful, that's just biology. The question is, now that you know, what do you do with that information? Understanding is the beginning. Once you genuinely understand the root of any behavior, where it comes from, why it exists, what it was designed to do, that behavior starts to lose its grip. Not because you forced it away, but because you stop being mystified by it. So the next time you feel pulled towards something that's been hard to stop, don't shame yourself, don't suppress it. Just look at it and say, I know what you are, I know where you came from, you're just the jungle talking. And then ask yourself a bigger question. What are you building? If you want to go deeper on how your ancient wiring is running modern life, including eating habits, money behavior, relationships, hit subscribe. That's what this channel is about. Let's build something bigger than the jungle together.